Good morning. This is Heidi Cooper of TorahFamilyLiving.com. And today I just wanted to welcome you into my Bible study time. I'm going to be copying from Psalm 119, verses 9 through 16 today. I have a scripture booklet that I release each month with the passages all ready for you to copy. And so what I do for my Bible study time is each morning at the breakfast table, you can see that's just my very unexciting kitchen table, but I sit there with my coffee every morning and go to the next passage to copy. And like I said, today I'm copying Psalm 119, and since I know it's small there, I'm going to go ahead and read it for you while I'm copying. How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart have I sought you. Let me not stray from your mitzvot. I have treasured your word in my heart, so I might not sin against you. Blessed are you, Adonai. Teach me your statutes. With my lips I rehearse all the rulings of your mouth. I rejoice in the way of your testimonies above all wealth. I will meditate on your precepts and regard your ways. I will delight in your decrees. I will never forget your word. And this I'm copying from the Tree of Life version, which is one of my favorites. I also sometimes use the English Standard Version. They're all reasonably well translated, especially if you're willing to, as I do later in the video, if you're willing to double check the original languages. And often it's also helpful to look at multiple translations as you're studying to compare and see how they translated them. So again, I copy the whole passage out. And sometimes people ask me, why are you such a strong proponent of scripture copy work? Because first of all, reading is good, but it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to let your mind wander. And if you're a decent reader, I know for a fact, because I do it all the time, it is possible to read an entire page. Your brain is sounding out the words and actually reading it, but you're not actually thinking about it as you're reading it. You're just kind of going through your motions, and you can get to the end of the page and not even know what you read. Whereas copying it, as you can see me doing here, it uses a whole nother part of your brain. It helps you to stay much more engaged with what you're doing. And it's helping you to process it in a completely different way. So I'm a very, very strong proponent of copying the scripture, not just reading it, because of how you're using your brain in a completely different way, and it helps you to stay engaged. Okay? So I'm getting close to the end of the passage. I find that if the passage you want to copy is starting to get a bit long, break it up into more than one day, which in my monthly copywork lists and booklets, that's what I do. I break up the longer passages. I want you to keep everything in context, which is why you will rarely see where I have you copy one verse. I want you to see it within a passage, but it's good to break down the longer passages so it's more manageable at the same time. Now, once you're done copying a passage, it helps to read it through again and look for patterns, look for lists, look for words that you might not completely understand or don't make sense in the passage. Here, I noticed that there are a lot of verbs that apply to me. And I know it's hard to see on the video, so I noticed the words guarding, sought you, not stray, treasured, rehearse, rejoice, meditate, delight, never forget. And these are all referring to the Torah, to the scriptures, to his instructions that he gives us. These are the responses and the verbs we are supposed to have in response to his word. So I highlighted those because they all relate. It's like a to-do list for me. Okay. Now what I'm doing here is I have some Hebrew letter stickers, and these are available as a printable in my Etsy shop, which I will link in the description. And Psalm 119 in particular is an excellent passage to learn Hebrew because every 8 verses has to do with a particular Hebrew letter. And this is the second group of verses. This is for the letter Bet. B-E-T. In Hebrew, it means a house, okay? So each of these has to do with the Hebrew letter. So I put the Bet there to remind me that's the section I'm on. And now I am actually using Blue Letter Bible, which is, you can use it as an app, you can use it on your computer. It gives you access to lots of translations, concordances. Here I'm using a concordance to look up the Hebrew for the word statute. And you can see there it is Chet, Kof, the Hebrew letters. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that correctly in the Hebrew, but what I did there is I copied down the definition of statute in the Hebrew, how it is often translated, just wrote down some notes there. Another interesting thing about Psalm 119 is there are lots and lots of synonyms for this word Torah, law, instruction, whole bunch of them. So it's a good idea as you're copying through Psalm 119 to be looking for these particular words and defining them as you go. In fact, an interesting thing about Psalm 119, I think almost every single verse and there's 176 verses in this chapter, almost every single one has to do specifically with the Torah, with the word, with the scripture, and describes it or how we're to relate to it in all kinds of descriptive language. It's a fascinating chapter. Okay, so there you can see I'm getting my Hebrew letter stickers out again and putting Chet and Kof, which is the Hebrew word for statute, putting that right in my notes there. Always a good idea to look up words in the original language because we lose that phrase, you lose something in the translation is so true. The meaning is so much richer when you go to the original language and take a look at all of the nuances of meaning that were in the Hebrew originally. And what I'm doing now is I'm writing down some application of how this directly relates to us as believers, me specifically. Always, you should have application when you study scripture. As James says, the scripture is to be like a mirror, but if we look at it and we don't change how we look when we see that we're a mess, it is useless to us. We need to change ourselves to match what we see in scripture. What I'm writing there, again, it's small and it's cursive, which means you probably couldn't read it anyway. It says, statutes are to be treasured, rehearsed, remembered, delighted in. They need to be a valuable and important part of every day, both studying and practicing, because it should be an integral part of our everyday lives. So this is just a peek into my Bible study time. It looks a little different depending on the passage I'm doing, how much time I have, but I hope this gives you some ideas on how you can get in there and copy and study scripture. And again, the resources will be linked in the description below. All right, thank you for watching.